welcome to Dan's Talks. My guest today is Jon Gruen, a longtime resident of the Hamptons, and also now in almost 4 months a year in Palm Beach. And I want to welcome you to the show. Well, let's talk a little bit about how did you first find the Hamptons in your life? How did the Hamptons come into your life?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. My first cousin, Jacqueline Singer, and her husband had a little house on John Street in Sag Harbor. And when I first came to the United States in 1964, the next year in 1965, she invited me to come out to the house and spend the weekend. And that's when I started to come out in 1965, a long time ago.
That was a time when much of Sag Harbor was in ruins. Many of the little homes were dilapidated and run down, and it was a sad time in the 60s out there.
Well, I still saw the charm in the town of Sag Harbor.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, it was always very charming. And, I remember going to the diner in Sag Harbor, and that was there forever. And the Sag Harbor pharmacy that was there. And, I really appreciated the fact that it was a quaint town that didn't seem to have a future. But obviously its location is so fantastic that the future happened regardless.
Yes.
The future of Sag Harbor just was something was predetermined.
You came to America from where?
From Bolivia. Yeah, my parents left Nazi Germany in 1939. And they were fortunate enough to be able to be received in Bolivia as immigrants. They landed in Chile, in Antofagasta, and then took a train to La Paz. And La Paz is very high in the Andes. And my father and mother decided to move to the valley, and it's a town called Cochabamba. Cochabamba, which is a Quechua name, which means edge of a river. It's a subtropical area zone, about 3,000 feet above sea level. So the climate is of eternal spring.
How did they earn a living when they got there?
Well, it was very difficult, as most refugees you can imagine. They didn't know Bolivia existed. They didn't speak the language. I mean, German, both of them, born in Berlin, ended up in a country that was quite poor, and Spanish was the only language spoken there, and obviously Quechua, which is the Indian language. My father started a little store importing clothing for a high-end clothing for the aristocracy in Cochabamba. There was a lot of family of old wealth, and my mother's name was Charlotte, so the name of the store was Salon Charlotte. And little by little, he built a little business. Never made a lot of money. The store was about 700 square feet, but it provided a roof over our head, and my father was able to send me to a private school in Bolivia. So he worked very hard, but he made ends meet.
How did you decide to come to America then?
Well, when you live in a country outside the United States, you always imagine United States, and especially New York, as the streets being paved in solid gold and the land of opportunity. Yeah. Although in Bolivia, I didn't have any anti-Semitism, or I was very well accepted by all the kids in my school and everything. I always felt a little bit as the outsider because I didn't look the same. And I basically had different family backgrounds, so it was a little different. I didn't feel that I belonged there, although I love the country.
So you came and you went into the mercantile business here in East Hampton.
Well,
People will remember Gruen Optika.
right. Well, I came to Manhattan, and I worked. I first came with the attitude of becoming a physician, and I found out early enough that it wasn't in my blood. I was too sensitive, and I think I wouldn't have had a good life with that. So I decided to go into the optical business, and I opened my first retail location on Lexington Avenue and 82nd Street in Manhattan. I was 26 years old, and I built Gruen Optika to a chain of 11 locations. And in the year 2000, I was fortunate enough to sell it to a Canadian merchant banking company. And I was very happy to be out of the retail business, although the optical business was very good to me.
So you came to, you were already coming out to the Hamptons for many years by that time. And you've raised a family out here and in the city. And then more recently, you became involved in developing Riverhead, hoping it would become reborn.
Yeah, I started in Manhattan. Actually, I was able to buy some locations where my optical store were. So I had a little idea of how the commercial real estate works, especially in the retail aspects, where I could have tenants who I would be able to get a rental income from. I contacted a friend of mine out here, a longtime friend, and we started to look for properties out here in Southampton. And he mentioned to me, John, how about Riverhead? So I said, how about Riverhead? I didn't know much about it. So we drove to a Riverhead, and he was very familiar with the area because he has a beautiful home in Quogue, so he went to Riverhead quite often. And when I saw the town with those fabulous bones and a fabulous architecture and a lot of historical landmarks, I really fell in love with it, and I saw great opportunities. And 10 years ago, we started to buy some commercial buildings.
Right in the center downtown.
Right in the center downtown. I really believe that Riverhead is going to continue to come back and become truly the crossroads of the Hamptons and the East End, because all roads do lead to Riverhead. And it's so beautiful. And the North Fork and Main Street is coming back with a lot of new residential buildings and new restaurants. And they're having more and more events. They have the River View walkway in a beautiful park at the Peconic River. It is truly magnificent. It's really pretty. A lot of people of the Hamptons never go to Riverhead. So you should make an effort. Go and visit Riverhead on a weekend or during the week during the summertime. You'll be impressed.
Have they finished with there was sort of a welcoming arch to get next in the middle of downtown across from the Suffolk Theater? Is that done, or are they still working on it?
There's it's still working on it, but that will be completed, I would assume, in another year. And I go with my wife often to Riverhead, and the spring and in the fall, and go to River Walk. And it's really amazing. It's beautiful. There's a pizza place also on West Main Street, and you can eat outdoors. And you sit right at the river, and you have a huge amount of geese and ducks and swans and roosters and chickens that roam around freely there. And it's a real throwback to 50 years ago. It's very clean and it's very, 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 very wonderful.
Yeah, well, Riverhead was the center of the East End for 25 years, to more, 100 years. It was the county seat. And then much of it moved away. And so all roads led to Riverhead. But then when one man, one vote came in, and they moved about 3/4 of all of the county buildings out to the west, 50 miles away. And that's where they are today. And now is this rebirth is happening.
Yeah. It is really, the courthouse is not far from my buildings. And one of my buildings where B&B, Bridgehampton National Bank, now Dime Bank, is located. So the property, the building is right on the river. And I have an area in the back where the parking lot is that has actual access to the water. And it's really terrific to see attorneys in their suits with their jackets and their white shirts and their ties bring the fishing poles, and they fish during lunchtime. They fish during lunchtime so they can relax there. And it's really terrific. Tell
me a little bit about Palm Beach. How did you come to decide to go there? Where do you live in there, and what do you do?
Okay. My wife and I are very much outdoors people. We enjoy outdoor activities. We enjoy biking. We enjoy playing tennis. And we find as we got a little bit older that the winter months out here in the East End became a little more difficult. We rather play tennis outdoors than indoors. And we have good friends who moved down there, and they kept saying, come on down. So we decided to come down about 6 years ago. We rented a place for 3 months, and we fell in love. And we fell in love with West Palm Beach, with Palm Beach, and we decided to buy. So we bought an apartment 5 years ago in West Palm Beach, right on the Intercoastal, about half a mile, not even, probably a quarter of a mile from the Middle Bridge. It is absolutely magnificent. We have views of the ocean, the Intercoastal, Palm Beach, and we're surrounded by wonderful restaurants, the Norton Museum. We can walk everywhere. We play tennis about 4 or 5 times a week. If we want to, we can play 7 times a week. We take long bike rides. And it has become truly an extension of our life here in the East End. Many of our friends have moved down to Florida, because we're all aging about the same time. And so it's been really terrific. We take walks in West Palm Beach or in Palm Beach, and it's like taking a walk in Southampton or East Hampton. Hey, all our friends are down there. So a few more days, looking at my calendar here, in another 16 days, we're flying down, and I'm looking forward to it.
And you'll be down there for 4 months, 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, I'll probably come back the second week in May. And truly said, Dan, and I'm not saying this because you're interviewing me, I'm always very, very happy to come back to the East End. I love our home in Sag Harbor, and I love the environment here very, 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 very much.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Dan, it's an honor that you thought of me, and it's my pleasure to be on your program. And continue working the way you are. You are terrific, and you'll be doing this for the next 25 years.
I'll see you soon, John.
Okay, buddy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.